Hello, folks. Welcome, welcome. My name is Keith Bruno. I'm a community naturalist with Audubon Rockies. And my teammates are Jacqueline Downey and Zach Hutchinson, also joining us tonight from Audubon Rockies, part of the community naturalist team. And we're really excited, really excited to host a special guest tonight. I'll call this a tradition because it started last January. So this is the second time we've hosted essentially no. Okay, hold on. Sorry, my computer just did something that thought I didn't want it to do right at this moment. This is the second time we've hosted we hosted Tracy Aviary from Utah, Salt Lake, Utah last January, and we're excited this time to host Rocky Mountain Raptor program. Tonight we have Jessica Miller joining us. She is the Education and Outreach Coordinator at Rocky Mountain Raptor Program, and Heather Schneider is also helping in the background. So thanks to Heather too. She is the Education Coordinator also at Education Director, excuse me, at Rocky Mountain Raptor Program. Collectively, they work with several other employees to make the program tick, and they're going to tell us about all that they do. But first, wanted to make sure that everybody felt oriented. Maybe let us know where you're joining us from in the chat box tonight. I'm joining from Pagosa Springs, Colorado. And maybe a second thing might be, what's maybe a cool raptor that's gotten your attention this winter? It could be your favorite raptor at large, but it could also be a raptor that's gotten your attention this year. We're always really excited come Christmas bird count season, which was a month ago for us, when we get to see ferruginous hawks, because they do not breed where I live right here. About 200 miles west, they do breed there, but they do overwinter where we live. So everybody gets really excited when the ferruginous hawks start showing up. So that's certainly a fun one for us this time of year. So yeah, let us know where you're visiting from, and favorite raptor or one that's gotten your attention this winter. And let's see. I think I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Jessica, if you're ready to rock.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm distracted by all of these wonderful raptors that everybody's listing over here. And then I see somebody brought their Matt and daughter brought your bald eagle with you. That's fantastic. I love it. I am so excited to be here with all of you. Thank you, Audubon. Thank you, Keith, for having us out, joining in with everybody. I'm really excited to get to share what we do, share about our program. We do have a live raptor for you all to meet. And then also there's going to be lots of time for you to ask your questions and try to learn whatever information you're interested in. I'm seeing a lot of people from our local area, from our service area, and it's just really fascinating to get to see how many wonderful people are here tonight. I'm just curious if you have ever heard of the Rocky Mountain Raptor program before, or if you've ever had any interactions with us, or you have a place you've seen us before. I'd love to see that in the chat just to kind of get a feel for how many of you might be familiar with us. But my name is Jessica Miller. Like he said, I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator here. So that means that my job is to talk to people about birds all day. It's a really good job, and I love doing it. I've been with the program, let's see, it's the new year, so I have to do all my math again. Now, 14 years I've been with the program. I started as a volunteer and volunteered for a few years, and then was able to turn that completely unexpectedly into a full-time career. And it's just been amazing to be part of this great team. Yeah, Botanic Gardens, somebody asked. Yeah, we're up in Estes Park. Shelly, a couple of times. No, not Shelly, Patty. Yeah, we're up in Estes Park a couple of times a year. So you usually see us at Elk Fest, at the Scottish Irish Highlands Fest. We used to come to the Scandinavian Fest when we were up there. And yeah, fantastic. So many great connections. I love it. So the Rocky Mountain Raptor program, we are based out of Fort Collins, and we serve all of the northeastern Colorado region. So that means Longmont North, all the way up into pretty much the eastern half of Wyoming. and then from about Estes Park east all the way out to the Kansas-Nebraska border. Land-wise, you're looking at a space about the size of Texas. And we serve all that area to do a couple of different things. First and foremost, we're a rescue and rehabilitation facility. So our primary work is to rescue injured raptors or birds of prey. We'll cover exactly what that means, so you guys probably have a pretty good grasp on that already. Of course, bringing them here to our hospital in Fort Collins with the goal of recovering them from whatever injury they've got and getting them back out into the wild. Last year in 2024, we brought in 311 patients, and over 300 is pretty typical now. In the 37 years that we've been doing this, we've seen those numbers slowly but very steadily continue to climb. And now we're averaging over 300 birds a year. And of those that came in, unfortunately, there are situations where birds may be injured beyond repair. And in those cases, we do anything we possibly can for that animal, but there may not be a possibility of releasing them back into the wild. But of those that we have the ability to treat, we get about 70 to 75% of them back out there in the wild. And so again, over 37 years that we've been doing this, that's thousands of individuals that have been released to continue their role out in the ecosystem, being that top tier predator, helping to ensure prey populations stay balanced, they don't get overgrown, and that our ecosystem remains in a really good equilibrium and a really solid balance. We're super lucky here in Colorado that we don't have any endangered species of raptors, so we're not involved in any breeding projects, but rather we're focused on population stabilization and making sure that it's keeping going in the way that it needs to. So we work with a variety of local organizations, including Colorado Division of Parks and Wildlife. We work with the state sheriff's office, local police officers, wildlife clinics, vets, and citizens to help bring these injured raptors into us to be able to work with them. I'm going to share, as I tell you a little bit more about what we do, I do have some pictures of what this looks like that I want to share. So I'm going to pop up a short slideshow. I'm going to keep talking, but share some pictures with you of what something like this might look like. Let me get back up to the top. Hang on. Need to go to that one. Give me a second. And hold on. I haven't done this before. Technological
You're good,
fails.
Jessica. Take your time. We've got so many great responses in the chat here. This is fantastic.
No. What did I do? Nope. Screen sharing.
That's a good sign. You might just have to give it a sec. It says Rocky Mountain Raptor program has started screen sharing. So
where is my screen? I'm not seeing.
You can try to there we go.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right. There we go. So this is some pictures of some patients that have come through our hospital in past years. We'll kind of go in a circle, give you a quick idea, though you can certainly challenge yourself if you know the species. Top left, we have a great horned owl with a broken wing, put in a bandage for stabilization to let that bone knit. Top center, we're looking at a golden eagle who's probably been hit by a car, clearly suffered some trauma, and the nares are being cleaned out to help the bird breathe. Top right, we see another great horned owl with some eye damage, again, probably from some kind of impact trauma, being hit by a car or flying into windows. These are the top two reasons why raptors come to our hospital. There's a wide variety of other smaller numbers, but about 90% of our patients are from those two reasons, cars and windows. Those are some of the biggest threats that they face out there in the wild. Coming around to the bottom right, we have a ferruginous hawk. This particular individual is suffering from lead poisoning from ingesting leftover lead shot in perhaps a carcass or a gut pile that was left behind by a hunter. That bird unfortunately did not survive that poisoning. Bottom center, we have a peregrine falcon. Again, you can see a broken wing with that bandage there, and a long-eared owl with another broken wing. We see a lot of wing injuries. Bandages are a great way to support them towards recovery. While these birds are with us, we do house them at our facility here at Fort Collins, and this is an example of what a room might look like where birds would be housed. To kind of give you an inside view of it, this is a couple of juvenile red-tailed hawk patients just in the space that they would be living in while they're with us. You don't normally get to see this. We can't show you these spaces in person. We're not legally allowed to show you the patients. It's not in the best interest of the patients to have a bunch of people coming by, but we can certainly show you pictures. We do get a lot of babies. A great majority of the patients that come to us are first-year, hatch-year birds, because that's the most vulnerable time of life when that learning curve of how to get along in the world is so incredibly steep and challenging. And if you know anything about wildlife in general, you may be familiar with the idea that most wild animals don't make it out of their first year of life, just because it is such a struggle and there are so many challenges out there to contend with. So we do bring in a wide variety of juvenile, hatch-year, even nestling. Bottom right-hand corner, you see a little nestling American kestrel that came in. And of course, we strive to get these birds back out there utilizing over with the little cotton ball great horned owls. We do have a cardboard cutout while they're on an interior space to help them properly imprint and begin socializing with others of their own species, or at least have that picture of that adult there with them. And then ultimately, we also have a team of foster parents that we don't have all species as foster parents, but we have some that then we can put the kids in with a foster parent. They can then learn from an adult. These foster parents are patients that did not recover well enough from their injuries to be released, but they also don't have the temperament to become an educational ambassador. So they stay behind the scenes and work as a foster parent. I also mentioned we work with vet clinics, and we work very closely with Colorado State University's vet teaching hospital to provide a lot more intensive care for the birds, from surgeries, radiographs, and lots of other examinations. Their vet staff is amazing. And it also gives the students over there a chance to perhaps be hands-on and learning more about how they can care for raptors and take that knowledge forward in their careers as well. So these are some examples of what it might look like with a raptor being treated by the vets over at CSU. Kind of an interesting thing to see. And of course, our ultimate goal, getting them back out there in the wild. And like I said, 311 patients in 2024. We are off to a fairly steady, typical start so far this year. We are up to 7 for this year. It's real quiet this time of year, but once that baby season hits, floodgates open and the summer gets really crazy. We also participate in some research, and this is an example of a research project. This eagle is being fitted with a backpack transmitter so that I believe we were testing how this transmitter would fit, and does it bother the eagle? Will the eagle tolerate it? How long does it last? So that when they get put onto birds out in the wild for research purposes, there's some understanding of how these transmitters are going to work, how long they're going to work, how well they're going to work. This is just one example of a great variety of different research projects that we've been involved with. Again, with the university, private researchers, students. We do a ton of data collection that we then make available to a wide variety of researchers as well. We have a question. Is the backpack transmitter for Motus towers? I believe that it is, yes. This was something I personally was not involved in, so I'm not going to say 100% yes, but most likely, yeah. And then where I do most of my work is providing education. This is the other large component of the work that we do, is utilizing non-releasable educational ambassadors out in public settings, predominantly schools, predominantly lower elementary. So that would be pre-K, kinder, first through third grade, with first grade being one of our biggest audiences. But we do also get out into community groups, universities. We come to Colorado State. We go out to Front Range. I was just at a high school this morning talking to environmental science students. But I spend a lot of time helping people learn more about these creatures and how they can be better environmental stewards for the wildlife that we share our spaces with. Our education also brings us out to community events like fairs and festivals, Boulder Creek Festival, Elk Fest, Scottish Irish Highlands Fest up in Estes Park. We go up to Steamboat for the Steamboat Art in the Park. We do events here at our facility in Fort Collins. We do a lot of things in town. So these are more informal sorts of settings where people come by and interact with our volunteers and get to see a variety of our ambassadors up close. Just a snippet of kind of what we are able to do at our organization and give you a kind of a feel for the different kinds of things. So that means I spend about 270 days a year interacting with people around education. And I really believe that that is the key component to building a better future for the world. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to come out and share what we do. Now, you've seen a bunch of stuff about who we are and what we do. You've seen a lot of beautiful bird pictures, but let's make sure before we meet our live raptors that we are all on the same page as to what a raptor is. I want to ask you a question, put it in the chat. What do you think are the important components or maybe the definition of a raptor? What does raptor mean to you? Do you know? A bunch of you have already listed species. What do you think is the thing that makes a raptor a raptor? And while you do that, I'm going to scroll through and see if there's some questions here I can answer. Patty up in Estes Park asks, how long does it typically take for a broken wing to heal? That's going to depend on how cooperative the patient is. It can probably be a couple of months, though if the patient is not willing to be cooperative, it can take a little bit longer, but a couple of months is fairly average. Yeah. Let's see, any other questions? No, I don't see any other questions, but let's see what people have to say about raptors. Carnivores, yes. Eating meat. Hunting for food, yes. Talons, ripping, tearing beak, absolutely. Hunting live prey. Birds of prey, raptors, those words are synonymous. They mean the same thing. You guys got it. You know you're raptors. So that means a raptor is, generally speaking, a predatory carnivorous bird that catches and kills with its feet, not its beak. Now, we all know there's a few exceptions to that. If you think about one of my personal favorites, the turkey vulture, those guys don't have the strong gripping feet of a raptor. They are predominantly scavengers. But a generalized understanding of a raptor says carnivorous, catching and killing with their feet. In terms of medical care, in terms of care under humans, it's the same for all of the different groups that we lump in as raptors. And so we consider that to be 8 different groups. Eagles, owls, hawks, falcons, vultures, those are the best known. And then there's also kites, harriers, and osprey. And Bonnie, I absolutely love your response about raptors migrating. Thank you for the Monty Python reference. That's fantastic. So we see all 8 of these groups. If you want to get into it, it's a whole nother thing. I'm not going to get terribly deep into it because it's pretty complicated. But depending on how you're classifying it, like if you're going with genetics, you're going to get an entirely different answer. That's a whole nother lecture all in itself. But via biological characteristics, which is the historical way of identifying and grouping animals, that's how we're going to classify it. So we do care for all 8 of those groups. And I have with me, I'm going to see if I can bring it up to the camera, an example of what those talons are going to look like up close. These are the feet of a great horned owl. You can see those incredibly sharp talons designed for puncturing right through the body of the prey. And it's not only the sharpness of the talons, but it's the strength of the feet. A great horned owl like this has about 300 pounds per square inch of grip strength. The average adult human male has about 50. So it's significantly stronger. They are incredibly well designed and really formidable birds. So those are the ones that we care for. And I want to introduce you to a live raptor. And since we're Audubon After Dark, I had to bring you an owl. So I have an owl over here. One of my volunteers is going to bring this bird over. I'm going to give me just a minute, and I'm going to bring it on camera for you guys to meet. And I'll introduce you to this ambassador, tell you his story, why is he here, what is he, and give you a chance to learn a little bit more about this type of owl. Give me just a second, I'll be right back. You gonna look at the camera? He's gonna be distracted by the pictures behind me. Anybody want to guess? Do you know what it is? I know, he's so small. Give you some guesses. He'll look around for a second. And we're getting some guesses down here. Yep. Real quick, Patty is asking, are raptors susceptible to avian flu? Yes, they are. And that is certainly something that our rehabilitation team has been contending with. It's been a real challenge. Last winter, we had 65 positive cases that were brought into our hospital, and all but one of them died. Unfortunately, it is almost universally fatal. We did have one of the very few survivors around the country from it, a red-tailed hawk that had a pretty mild case. All right, most of you got it. This is the eastern screech owl. And this is Tycho. Tycho's one of our 19 ambassadors, and he has been with the Rocky Mountain Raptor program since 2020. He's 5 years old. He came to us as a fledgling bird. Unfortunately, we think he got hit by a car. And like I said, that is pretty much the #1 injury that we see in trees. And when he was hit by that car, his lower jaw was fractured right about here, and it didn't heal up in proper alignment. So his beak is slightly crooked. It's really hard to see because it's all covered up with those feathers. But his beak is crooked, and so it overgrows in a way that requires trimming. If we didn't trim it, and we left it for a while to see what would happen, but if we didn't trim it, it grows and it curls over in a way that prevents him from being able to open his beak and eat. So we have to regularly trim it. We call this coping. It's something that's commonly done for raptors in human care. We do it with most of our ambassadors. We use a little Dremel and we not drill through, but like file the beak off just in little bits to keep it shaped nicely so we can continue to eat. And I imagine it vibrates like when you go to the dentist and they drill in your teeth or something like that. He's not a fan of it. We don't have to do it often, but occasionally we do to help him be able to eat. Aside from that, he's in good shape. He's fully flighted. He's a very typical size and shape and coloration for eastern screech owls. These guys are very common across Colorado. We are one of the few states that has both the eastern and the western screech owl. So Jeffrey, you guessed the western screech owl. Dawn also guessed western. We do have both in the state. So if you think of Colorado as a rectangle, kind of the northeastern quadrant quarter of the state is where you're going to find the eastern screech owls. The rest of the state is where you're going to find the western. We're right on that border between them. They are two different species. How do you tell them apart? Unless you have them in hand, you probably don't. There's some really subtle differences. They do have different colored beaks. The eastern screech owl, look at everybody, has a greenish gray beak, and the western has a black beak. The markings and spottings on the belly on the western are going to be bolder, heavier. And then they do have very different, distinctly different calls. Debbie asked, what's the full rotation of their heads? Is it 360 degrees? It's about 270, so not quite all the way around. The idea that an owl can turn its head all the way around is a myth. If you think about blood flow and air that has to go through, if they were to twist their head all the way around, it's like twisting up a sandwich bag. Air and blood can't flow. So they wouldn't be able to do a full front all the way back around to the front. But they can do what would be the equivalent of us starting here, coming to this shoulder, and then all the way back around almost to the opposite shoulder. And they can do that because they have twice as many bones in their neck as you or I do. We have 7, he has 14. And so it's not that each joint goes any further, it's just that he has more bones. And so that's what allows owls to turn their heads around as far as they do. And while owls are best known for turning their heads, all raptors have the ability to do that. They do all have those additional bones. They can all turn their heads the same way that you think an owl might, that he keeps demonstrating for us. Lillian asked, why does he keep looking at the pictures? He does look at the pictures. Little owls like this can be prey for larger raptors. But this set behind me, this is not something he's been in before. This is a new space. And so he's just busy checking everything out because it's all brand new to him. So he's just busy looking at everything around. So he's one of, like I said, 19 ambassadors that we have. So if you get to see us at another event, another program, come to us at an open house, we have 18 other beaks for you to meet. So every time you come or see a program from us, hopefully you get to meet a different ambassador. These little screech owls are easy to hear, hard to spot. Because they're so small, because of the markings on the belly, they have just absolutely amazing camouflage. They are often hunted by the larger cousin, the great horned owl. They regularly eat screeches. And they can be hunted by a variety of other larger birds. Great horns are the biggest. So they rely on camouflage as part of their security. The markings on the belly are meant to look like tree bark. And then the feathers on the top of the head, the 2 little tufts, they're called. And those are not the ears. They look like ears. They look like cat ears. Those are simply feathers. The ears are on the side of the head like yours and mine. No external parts, just a hole covered up by the feathers on the side, so you can't really see them. But these up here, these feathers, this is one of my favoriteest raptor words. They're called plumicorn. Plume, feathers, plumage, corn, horn, plumicorn. Isn't that great? I love that word. And so they use these for camouflage when they close their bright eyes and they sitting up on a tree branch or in a cavity, like a hole on the side of a tree. They're just going to blend right into that bark and almost disappear from view using those feathers to kind of break up the outline to make them look more like a broken branch and improve their camouflage. So they're very hard to spot out in the wild. Here in Fort Collins, we have a fairly well-known pair of eastern screech owls along the Poudre River Trail outside of Lee Martinez Park. It's a red and a gray pair. the eastern screech owl will come in 3 different color variations or morphs, the gray like this being the most common. They have a reddish coloration, which we do have here in the west, but is more common east where there's more red foliage. And then there's kind of an auburn brownish color that is pretty uncommon. But that pair along Poudre River, that's a red and a gray pair. I've never been successful in spotting them, but I have heard them go out just about the time the sun is setting, maybe a half an hour before to a half an hour after sunset or sunrise. That's when these guys are out and about, and it's the best time to go listen for them. They make not your typical owl sound. We often think of owls as making a hoo hoo hoo, a hooting sound. That's the great horned owl. Super common. They're nesting right now, super vocal this time of year, so you're going to hear a lot of them. These little screech owls, on the other hand, they make a sound called a whinny and a trill. And the whinny is exactly what you think it would be. It sounds like a horse whinnying. And then they make this trilly sort of noise. I can't do it. I've been practicing, but I haven't learned how to do it yet. But if you get on any of your apps that you might have on your phone, I use the Audubon app on my phone, which has a free version. It's got all the calls. It's a really great app that I use. And I love the feature for ID that's on it as well. But they may have recording of what these little guys sound like, so you know what to listen for, and then you can listen for them because you're more likely to hear them than you are to see them. They're just so small, they just camouflage in so well, but they are incredibly common, and their population numbers are doing really well. When it comes to patients for these little guys, the most common reason they come to our hospital is getting hit by cars. And so, of course, that begs the question, what on earth is an owl doing in the middle of a road that's going to cause them to get hit by cars? Very often what happens, not just for owls, but for raptors in general, is that roadside garbage, food scraps tossed out of cars, unsecured trash cans on a windy day that blows all that garbage down across the road, that's going to draw in a prey animal, like a squirrel or a mouse or a rabbit, who's going to be looking for food. Maybe it smells like food. Maybe it is food. And they're busy on the side of the road eating those little things. We mow down the grass, so there isn't that hiding space for them. They're very exposed. And then the predators will come along and hunt those critters along the side of the road. But because they're so focused on what they're hunting, they're not going to be looking for other hazards coming from a different direction. So if they swoop across the road intent on hunting something on the other side, they're going to get hit by that car. Or they've successfully hunted, they're on the side of the road on that kill, either waiting to go somewhere with it or eating it where they caught it. And let's say they're along a major road, even perhaps the interstate, the big vehicles coming by, they displace all that air, they pick the birds up and they tumble them down alongside or into the road. So it's more of an indirect impact than maybe being directly struck by a car. But it's the same result. And so keeping garbage secured, as incredibly simple as it may sound, is also an incredibly powerful way to protect wildlife across the board, not just raptors, but so many animals. And I don't know about you, but I like living in a world that's clean. I don't like living in a world with a bunch of garbage. And it's a really great way to help protect wildlife. So we have some questions. Do they mate for life? Raptors generally, yes, they do mate for life. Now, there are, of course, times when one of that pair will not return to a mating area, or maybe one of that pair dies for whatever reason. That does mean that the surviving other one will go find another mate. There are situations where maybe nesting might be unsuccessful. Maybe they've tried for a couple of years. They're just not getting it figured out, they may decide to essentially divorce and go try somebody else. Because the instinct, the goal, of course, is to pass on the genetics, and they're able to figure out if they're successful or not in doing that, and then maybe they just need to go find somebody else to try it with. So generally, yes, but there are situations where they will find a new mate. Absolutely.
Also have some curiosity about their nesting habits.
Nesting habit. Oh, yeah. Eastern screech owls are cavity nesters. Because they're so small, they want to get inside of a tree trunk maybe, or a dead tree, somewhere where they have a little bit of an interior space to protect themselves and their young. So you won't often find them sitting out in the open, but they more often will sit right inside, right perch on the edge of that hole that leads to the cavity down in the tree. So you'll see them sitting there, they floof their feathers out, close those eyes, and kind of essentially fill up that cavity, that entrance, and blend right into the bark. So they don't tend to sit out very often, and that's one of the things that makes them harder to spot. Even outside of nesting season, they'll still utilize those cavities for safety. Yeah, good question.
How are you able to hold him?
Yeah, how do I hold on to him? I see Ben asking, does he have a band on his leg, and is this how I hold him? He does have very traditional handling equipment that you'll see in both Raptors, educational ambassadors like this, as well as falconry birds. He wears on his legs, he wears little bracelets. And I'll see if he'll let us. Let me show everybody a bracelet. Right here. He's got little bracelets that wrap around his legs with a little grommet right in the back. And inside of that is a little leather string here called a jess. And it comes out. And then the jess is attached to a leash, and the leash is attached to me. This is a very typical way of jessing and equipping a bird like this for safety. This is to protect him because he doesn't know that he can't survive out in the wild. Everything comes off except for the bracelets, which are permanent, but everything else is going to come off in just a little bit here. When he's done working for the day, he's going to go back to his enclosure. Everything's going to be removed, and he is what's called free lofted. He is free to move about his space on his non-working time in whatever way he chooses. He's got a variety of perches. He's got a little A-frame house. He's got high. He's got low. He can go wherever he chooses to go. And then we ask him with the reward of treats to come down and let us put this equipment on when we want to take him places. And all of our ambassadors they have free choice. They're not forced into it. They can tell us, no, I don't want to work today. And that's okay. Then we ask somebody else. So the welfare, the consideration of the autonomy of the animal is something we take very seriously. So we don't force them into situations, and they are given positive reinforcement, rewards, and treats in the way you might train your dog to help encourage them to participate. And then we also learn if there are situations they feel uncomfortable in, we may not ask them to do that again. So we really have a good read on the preferences of each of our individual ambassadors. Yeah, Patty wants to know if Tycho has a mate. He does not. Again, breeding isn't something that we're involved in. It's a whole nother layer of regulations and permits and funding. And since we don't have any species that are in need of population building, no endangered species in the state, we haven't gotten into doing any breeding. So there are organizations that do. It just isn't something that we're involved with. Good question. Keep them coming. Do you have time to talk about the egg to leaving the nest? I do. It is faster than you think it might be. It's remarkably fast. They go from egg size, and the egg of an eastern screech owl is, yes, about that big. They're pretty small, to this full-grown adult size in 2 months. They're voracious eaters. They grow incredibly fast. I know, yeah, wow. They grow incredibly fast. Again, life in the wild is really hard. There is a rapid learning curve to get through all the growing and then all the skill learning, how to get along, how to hunt. Hunting takes a lot of practice to master. And they only have that one summer to master everything that they need to before winter sets in. So they have to grow really fast to give them that time to practice their life skills. Little screech owls like this predominantly hunt small mammals and rodents. So top of the menu is going to be things like mice, spiders, crickets, grasshoppers, small snakes, maybe other small birds, moths. Those are going to be on the menu as well. Mice make up a large bulk of their diet. So that does unfortunately make these little guys susceptible to secondary rodenticide poisoning. So the little poison pellets that you find in little packet decon is one of those brand names. Pull off the top, there's little green pellets inside of it to put in your house, like if you get mice in your kitchen or something. The mice will eat that. They think it's food. They ingest the poison and it kills the mouse. However, it doesn't kill them right away. So little mouse wanders outside, gets hunted by the owl, who now is also poisoned as well. So we always advocate, because they do hunt so much mice, to go for snap traps if you have mice you need to deal with in your home setting. That's going to directly get only the ones you want to get. So, how long do they live, Julie asked? Typically speaking, when you're talking about raptors, little bird, little life, big bird, big life. This is a little bird. So he's only, 7 inches tall? And he might live 5 to 7 years in the wild. A medium-sized bird like a red-tailed hawk or a great horned owl, you're looking more 12 to 15. Something big like a golden eagle, a bald eagle, you're 25, 30 years in the wild. In human care, though, without the challenges and the competition of life in the wild, sometimes they can double, maybe even triple that lifespan. So at 5 years old, while that's an average life, we could easily see him celebrate his 15th birthday. That's hatch day. Really, we call them hatch days. That's entirely possible. So, what do we feed them? Because he is not capable, well, now he is capable of hunting his own food, but most of our ambassadors are not. So he and all of our other ambassadors and our patients, while they're with us for the most part, eat food that is frozen. It's already dead. It's frozen. We thaw it and portion it out as we need it for the individual birds. And so he eats predominantly mice, rat, and rabbit. That makes up the bulk of his diet. He is not a picky bird, though. These little guys will eat pretty much anything that they can catch. Now, they're little, so it's going to be little stuff, but you offer him food, it's free food. He'll take it. He's kind of a greedy little guy. He likes to eat. And each day, he's going to eat about 10% of his body weight. He weighs in at about 160 grams, which is about 3 AA batteries, or as much as a coffee mug. And he's going to eat, what did he get today? 26 grams of food. So that's a lot. Equivalent-wise, me as an adult, that would be like me eating 26 cheeseburgers a day. That's a lot of food. They have a high metabolism. They maintain a high body temperature, so they have to eat a lot of food to keep themselves going. And everybody's wanting to eat a little bit more with this cold weather coming in this weekend and these super sub-zero temperatures that we have coming up. These birds know it's coming and they want more food. The ones in the wild, they're eating a lot more in preparation for that cold weather to give them more calories to burn to keep warm. So he's been real eager for food in the last couple of days. So great question.
We also had a question
Yeah.
up above. Someone asked, what should they do if they find a bird?
Okay. Yeah. I have Heather over here helping me answer your question. So the pause is me listening over to Heather. What was the question again? I lost it. Oh, that is the best question. And thank you for asking that, because that's really one of the most important parts of you learning about this, these animals and the work that we do. The raptors that come to our hospital come to us from people like you, out and about, living their lives. They find a bird that they think needs help, call us. And I'm going to have Heather, who's over there in the chat, she's going to put in there the phone number that you can call. Save this. This is our rehabilitation hotline. So call us first, because we can offer so much assistance over the phone. Plus, if it turns out that it's not a raptor, we can tell you where that bird can go so you can get it to help faster. That improves its chances of recovery. That number, Heather, did you? Okay. So Heather's going to get that number in there for you. Please feel free to utilize that. There's also our website that Heather has popped up in there for you as well, that you can go visit, learn more about who we are, but that number is on there, as well as calendar of events. So if you want to know where can you come to see more about our birds, or come to an open house, or see us at a library, that's all going to be there as well for you. And most of the events that we do are free, so you get a chance to come and see us. Now, this organization, we are a nonprofit, and that means that we rely on the generosity of our community to be able to continue to care for these patients and these ambassadors. Right now, it takes over $1 million a year to run this organization. That's a lot of money. And even though these animals are federally protected, they are state protected. We have a number of permits and licenses that we have to hold in order to utilize and care for these animals. You yourself, legally, you're not able to do that. Plus, the things you need to do that, the medications, the food, the bandaging, the knowledge, that stuff that we are going to have. So even though they have those federal and state protections, we don't get any funding from the federal government. We don't get any funding from the state. None of these organizations that do this kind of wildlife rehab really do. And so we are almost entirely donation funded from private citizens, people like you, who support what we do and want to help provide for the raptors, generally of $1,000 or less, but any dollar goes a long way. So that is another way that you can help support the patients, support the ambassadors, support our educational programming as well. Any donations, our website, call us at our main number, which is not the one that Heather just put in, a different number. But you can reach out to us if at any point donation seems like something you want to do. So Doodle, thank you. I love being an ambassador for these birds and getting to share them. It's been a real joy in my life. It's a privilege, too, to be able to sit here with him like this. So Linda asks, are raptors doing okay in Colorado? Generally speaking, yes, they're doing all right. There's a couple that are under concern. So we have one species of raptor that is considered to be threatened. It's a state listed, not a federally listed species, and that's the burrowing owl. The other two that are under careful watch, they're not listed in any way, but they're considered a special concern. The state is watching them really closely, is the golden eagle and the ferruginous hawk. And all three of these birds have something in common that is the reason for this situation. And I'm going to give our little ambassador Tycho back to my wonderful volunteer Ash over here. He's going to go home, finish his meal. He's been waiting all day to eat. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So you can say goodbye, Tycho. You can go back. Give me a sec. I'll be right back. All right. And so the thing that all three of those species have in common is this guy, the prairie dog. All three of those species rely on prairie dogs for their survival in some fashion. The ferruginous hawk, the golden eagle, this is a primary prey. That's what they predominantly eat. The burrowing owls, they do exactly as their name suggests, they burrow. Except, have you ever tried to dig a hole in Colorado? Our soil is awful. It's clay, it's hard, it's rocky. They have their talons to dig with. They're not the best tools. And so the prairie dogs are built. Look at those claws. They are built for digging in the terrible Colorado soil. And so the burrowing owls utilize the burrows that the prairie dogs dig. And as prairie dog populations are going down, we're seeing those three species, their populations going down as well. So that is a complicated issue. It's a controversial issue. Prairie dogs can be a challenging situation to deal with. With any conservation issue, there's no easy answer for these questions, unfortunately. So Patty, I love Tycho too. He is a wonderful bird. And again, it's such a privilege to get to work with him. Yeah, another question. Oh, how can the raptors tell if it's about to get very cold? I wish I knew, but somehow they know. They can sense it coming in some way. I don't understand this myself, but it shows in their behavior. They just get really hungry and they want more food. They're looking for more food. And if we offer more, knowing what they normally eat, they're almost always willing to eat it. So their behavior shows a recognition of a changing weather pattern coming up. How exactly? I wish I knew. It's a remarkable thing that they can do. So there's a question about down in the spring, should you call Pueblo if you find an injured raptor? Yes, you should. That is going to be your nearest organization. Across the Front Range, there are 3 main places that you can take an injured raptor. In the northern part of the Front Range, that's here, us at the Rocky Mountain Raptor Program. In the Denver area, that is Birds of Prey Foundation. And in the southern part of the state, outside of Pueblo, is the Raptor and Nature Center of Pueblo. Those 3 organizations do rehabilitation, and you can bring injured raptors to those organizations. Please always call first. That way, the rehabilitation team can be prepared to treat that bird and triage it as soon as it arrives, and give them time to be ready and prepare and better serve that bird. So please give a call first. So, are prairie dog populations going down because of the plague, or are people still poisoning them? Not really either of those. The plague is something that prairie dogs are susceptible to. The fleas that live on the prairie dogs carry the plague. And when prairie dog populations are forced into subpar territory, spaces that are not healthy to meet their needs, they're too close together, there isn't enough food, the prairie dogs get unhealthy, they can't groom properly, they don't groom the fleas away, they get too many fleas, the fleas carry the plague, then the prairie dogs get the plague. So as populations get compacted into these really small spaces, traditionally a prairie dog village would be quite extensive, large swaths of land they need. When they're forced into small spaces, they're not as healthy, and that's when the plague can take over. It's not as common. It does happen, but it's not a common reason. It's more the compacting of them down means there's less good food to eat, because they eat a fair amount, but they don't want to eat so much grass and vegetation that then it can't regrow. And that's what happens when they get pushed into a really small area, is they're going to eat all the vegetation to the point where it's not going to grow back, and then they run out of food, and then they start dying off. Poisoning is certainly something that happens. There's a lot of fear, there's concern, there's misunderstanding around prairie dogs. There's concern from ranchers about prairie dogs because they dig holes, and if a livestock steps in that hole, a horse in particular, and breaks the leg, well, that's thousands of dollars lost in that animal from a broken leg. And so there is some poisoning of prairie dogs going on because of that, to try to get them out of an area. We do also see some poaching of the prairie dogs. People go out and they'll shoot the prairie dogs and then they just leave them there. They're using lead shot. The prairie dog gets scavenged. We also see lead poisoning in ferruginous hawks and golden eagles because of that as well. So there's a lot of challenges. The biggest reason their numbers are going down is habitat loss. Colorado population continues to grow, but we've gone about as far west as we can go. The mountains are in the way, so now we're going east, where traditionally it's been a lot of open grasslands. Now there's not as much, it's getting built up, and that's disturbing the populations and decreasing the spaces they have to live. Not just the prairie dogs, but all the animals that live out in that area. Yeah. So, Nature and Discovery Center now, thank you. Yes, I know your name changed and my brain stumbled on that. Thank you, Diana, for the correction. Yes, in Pueblo, it's the Nature and Discovery Center is the name of that organization that can take injured raptors. Yes. Can you call Colorado Parks and Wildlife for help with injured raptors? Yes, you can. That's one of the partners that we work with. That is a great resource to call, especially because they can help get injured animals to us that are maybe further out from Fort Collins. There's another great resource that I'm going to give to you that is not raptor specific. It is not Colorado specific. You can use this anywhere you go in the country for any injured animal you might encounter. And it's called animalhelpnow.com. ahnow.com is what it goes by. And this website, when you go to it, it'll ask you, where are you? What animal do you have? And then it'll populate a list of the nearest rehabilitators that you can take that animal to. So that's a great resource. Thank you, Heather, for popping that up into the chat. That's a great resource you can take anywhere in the country that you might go to help wildlife should you need it. So. What is the wing behind me over here? This one. This is a red-tailed hawk wing. I know we're at 8 o'clock, but I'll show this to you because this is really cool. This is a tool that we use as part of our teaching to show how the feathers grow. Because if you look, you can see that the feathers grow directly from inside the bone of the wing. They have a live blood supply from the vessels, the veins that go through the main bones that feed the feathers as they grow. And once the feathers are grown, that blood supply shuts off, but they are actually embedded in the bones of the wing, which is really fascinating to get to see what they look like up close. Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. More questions, yes. Do raptors migrate? That's a great question. Many do, but not all. And it's kind of a mix. So some of the big migrators are turkey vultures, Swainson's hawks, rough-legged hawks, burrowing owls do migrate. Who else? Merlins will migrate. So some are here in the summer and migrate south from us for the winter. Some are north of us in the summer and migrate down to Colorado for the winter, so they kind of shuffle back and forth. And then we have some species that stay here year-round. So you get a good mix of all of that. Lizzie asked, do kestrels migrate? They not as often. They are typically here year-round. But like you, I have seen a lot more in the recent month to 2 months than I have the entire year. It's been really interesting. I haven't seen a lot of kestrels this year. Their numbers are in decline. They're starting to struggle. But I have been really grateful to see animalhelpnow.org. Thank you, Keith. Yes, thanks for that correction. But I have started to see a lot more kestrels. I'm not sure why, but I've noticed that too. That's been really interesting. So yes, Keith has a correction. It is animalhelpnow.org, not .com. Thank you for catching that. So, all right, we're past 8 o'clock. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, for your great questions, your curiosity. What is the raddest raptor in Colorado? I personally think it's the turkey vulture, but you get to choose for yourself. I really hope to get to see any of you at another upcoming event or program. Please feel free to reach out if you have other questions that I didn't get a chance to answer tonight, or you think of something down the road. I'm going to have Heather pop my email into the chat one more time for you. Send me a message. I'd love to answer your questions for you. It's jessica@rmrp.org. I would love to help provide you with more opportunities to learn. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It's been such a great joy sharing with you tonight. Really hope to get to see you soon.
Jessica and Heather, fantastic presentation. Y'all are so good at this. Truly gifted. And everyone is validating that in the chat. So thanks so much for giving your time and sincerity. It comes right through. So we really appreciate it. That was fantastic. I learned personally so much. It was wonderful.